Welcome to the audio laboratory. This punchy and unnatural drum sound was omnipresent in the 80s and is steadily finding its way back into a lot of modern productions. But what is gated reverb? Let's take a snare hit and add some characterful reverb to it. But instead of letting the reverb tail ring out completely, we'll just cut it off. Now, as simple as this sounds, there are a few techniques required to make this work. So, if anything is unclear to you, just catch up with the other flashcards first. Let's take a look at how gated reverb is created in the digital audio workstation. We'll stick to the classics. We want this snare to have gated reverb. First we need a bus. Let's call it gated reverb bus and add some characterful reverb to it. 100% wet. We can route as much of our snare signal into it as we want. Set the send to pre-fader if you want the reverb level to be independent of the snare volume fader. So far, so good. Right now, this is a regular reverb send effect bus, just like the one we saw in the episode about send effects. Here's where it gets interesting. We'll add a gate to the bus after the reverb. At the moment, this gate listens to only the reverb. As soon as the reverb decays and goes below the threshold, the gate will close down. While this does kind of work, it's not a very reliable way to trigger the gate. It's too dependent on the reverb settings and just not very flexible. And that's not what we want. We want the gate to react to the snare itself. So we just sidechain the snare signal into the gate plugin. Don't forget to tell the gate to actually use the external sidechain input. In this case, we have to set the detector input to auxiliary inputs. The gate now listens to the snare, but it controls the reverb. So every time the gate hears the snare, it will open up and the reverb becomes audible. Just make sure the threshold is set so the gate triggers correctly and catches all of the drum hits. A dry snare hit is usually rather short, and it will only trigger the gate during that time. Using the hold and release controls, we can now fine-tune for how long the reverb should be heard after each snare hit. The gate will be kept open for the length of the hold time. You should experiment with this value so that the reverb fits in well with the beat. If the reverb tail cuts off too abruptly, you can turn up the release a bit. But don't set it too high, or else the result will be too similar to a regular reverb, which defeats the whole purpose. Remember, you can experiment with different types of reverb and you can fine-tune the sound with additional effects like EQ, compression, saturation, clipping, or even distortion. A big advantage of gated reverb is that you can have an extreme amount of reverb, yet there's no long reverb tail that muddies up the mix. Gated reverb can be used to fatten up literally every percussive sound. That's it for this flashcard. Don't hesitate to leave a comment, and if you want to see more videos like this one, subscribe and ring the bell.
Beep, Bunny.